multiplying large numbers. We've talked about that this was coming, and we did some multiplication strategies to think about multiplication. You guys have been memorizing your multiplication times tables, and now it is time to put all those things to good use. All right, please pause the video and write down the title, Multiplying Large Numbers. We did the short form for numbers there, May 20. Underline it and then put number 1, and I want you to copy down that question, and when you're ready you can start the video again. Okay, 23 times 7 equals, we're going to figure out what that answer is. And I know that you wrote it down like that, and that's fine, but to figure out the answer to this question, we have to rewrite it. Okay, so just like when we're adding big numbers or subtracting, we have to line the numbers up on top of each other. So the same rule goes, the ones column always goes over top of the ones column. Okay, so if you copy it out like this with the 7 in the middle, or like this with the 7 in the tens, you are going to get the wrong answer. Okay, so I want you to write it out like this, and you put the multiplication sign right there. So make sure your 3 is over your 7. Make sure your 2 is beside in the separate column for tens. Okay, so write that out. Pause the video if you need to do that. Okay, how do we multiply these large numbers? Okay, we are going to start with multiplying the ones by the ones. Okay, so just like when we're adding, we always start with the ones. When we're subtracting, we start with the ones. Same for multiplication. So 7 times 3, or if you haven't learned your 7 times tables, 3 times 7. Okay. So 3 times 7 is 21. So here's our answer, 21. We're going to take the ones and put it in the ones column. Then we're going to take the tens and we're going to trade over there. Sorry, carry. We're going to carry it over. Okay. Now we are going to do the ones multiply by the tens. So 7 times 2, or 2 times 7, is 14. Then you're going to add the extra 2 tens. So 14 plus 2, write down your answer. And there's nothing else over here to trade to or to carry to, so we just write down the full 16 right there. So the answer, 23 times 7, is 161. Okay. Now, if you got confused during that, I am just going to go through that again. Okay. So let's look at how it works. Writing the numbers on top of each other very carefully, lining them up. 7 times 3, 21. We wrote the 1 underneath. We carried the 2 extra to the tens. Now we do 7 times 2 is 14. 14 plus the 2 at the top is 16. So you see how we have multiplication, but if there are numbers that are carried at the top, we add them, just to make things more difficult. Okay, number 2, I want you to think about how I told you to line up these numbers, pause the video, write this out, but then I want you to write the numbers on top of each other as well. Okay, pause the video and do that. Okay, if you lined it up properly, you should have 64. We always put the smaller number on the bottom and the multiplication sign. Okay. So what I want you to do here is think about, don't just wait for me to tell you, think about what 2 numbers get multiplied first. Okay, if you thought about 5, so the ones and the ones. 5 times 4 is 20. So we're going to take that ones and put it in the ones. Now we're going to take the 2, which is the tens, and we are going to carry it to the tens. But remember, we're going to be adding that. Okay? Okay, now think about what to multiply next. All right, 5 times 6. So now we're going to multiply the ones by the tens. So 5 times 6, think about what that is. And then add 2. So 5 times 6 is 30 plus 2, 32. 64 times 5 is 320. And just think for a minute if that makes sense to you. So 64 is about 60. So if we were to do 60 times 5, what would we get? 6 times 5 is 30 plus one more 0. That's about 300. And our answer is very close to 300, 320. So there we just did some really quick rounding using our 0 rule. That's really fast to do in your head. And we can see that our answer is probably right. Okay, it's very close. All right, number 3. Again, you're going to write out all of that and you're going to write it out properly, lining it up on top. Pause until you have that ready. All right, if you wrote it out properly, you should have 14 on the top. 8 should be exactly under the 4. If it looks like this, no good, okay? You need to have it lined up exactly on top. See how these numbers are exactly on top of each other? That way you won't get mixed up. Most mistakes are made not because kids don't know their times tables, but because they line their numbers up incorrectly. And then when they go to do the question, they end up multiplying the wrong numbers. Okay? All right, think about what to do first in this question. Okay, ones times 1. So 8 times 4, if you haven't learned your 8 times tables, 4 times 8. Think about what that is. 4 times 8. $32 is our answer. So we're going to write down the ones. The 2 goes right there. And we're going to carry the 3 tens into the 10 column. But remember, this is adding. Okay? Now, most people don't write that little addition sign in. I'm just doing that to remind you. Okay? All right, think about what to multiply next. Okay, 8 times 1 is 8. Now what do you do? 8 plus 3 is 11. Okay, so our answer is 112. And let's just take a quick look at this. So 14, let's round that to 10. 10 times 8 is 80. Okay. It's not super close, but it's definitely in the same ballpark. So we can check our answer by doing that quick little rounding. Number 4. Okay, you know what to do. Get it all written out. Pause the video until you're ready. Okay, if your page looks like this, that's fantastic. Okay, now I want you to think about what to do first, and I want you to go ahead and write down the first part of the answer. So pause your video. Okay, if you thought about doing this times this, 2 times 7, that is correct. 2 times 7 is 14. So if you got this part right, you have the 4 in the ones and you carried the 10, the 110 into the tens. Okay, so far you're right. If you're not right so far, stop, erase it, get it all done properly. Okay, now you're going to think about what comes next to multiply and what you have to add, and then I want you to write that down. Okay, pause the video. Okay, if you did 2 times 6 is 12, and then you added the 1, 12 plus 1 is 13, you are correct. Good job. Let's just round that and see how close that is. So 67, let's round to 70. 70 times 2, 140. Very close, very close. And the reason why we do this is to make sure that something didn't go wonky with our multiplication, okay? Like let's say that I did this by mistake, okay? Here we go. So let's say I did 2 times 7, and instead of writing down the 4 here, I put the 1 here and I put the 4 up here. Now I do 2 times 6 is 12. 12 plus 4, 16. Well, 2 times, 12. Well, that's still kind of close, isn't it? So we wouldn't be able to check from that one. Here, let me make a worse mistake. Let me do this. 2 times 7, 14. Let's say I put the 4 here and the 1 here, so I do this right. 2 times 6, and I do the wrong times table. So let's say I think of 6 times 6 for some reason. I go 36, 37. So I do the wrong times table right here. If I round it, I can see that something is wrong, right? These numbers aren't at all close together, okay? So that way you can sort of spot mistakes. Okay, number 5. I bet you did not know this, but Balcarnes bookshelf has 4 shelves. Maybe Balcarnes doesn't even know that. He's just finding out right now. Each shelf holds 21 books. So look at that. Do you have 2 numbers to work with? Sure do. You got the 4 and you got the 21. Now, how do we know what to do with these numbers? How many books does Balcarnes bookshelf hold? Okay, there are some clue words in here. Now, boys and girls, you do not need to write this out. All you need to do is write down number 5, okay? All right, how do we know what to do? There's some clue words. So number 5, I want you to pause the video and see if you can find 2 clue words. Okay, one of the clue words is each, and I mentioned this in another video, but when you see each is a clue word that tells you to multiply, because it means that there's groups of something and each group has a certain number. So when we talk about groups, we are multiplying. So each is a clue word that goes with groups. Okay, there were these words here, how many books? But that doesn't really tell us to add or subtract or multiply. But if we think about what this question's asking, how many books does Balcarnes bookshelf hold? We're talking about the whole bookshelf. So we really mean all, the whole bookshelf. So they don't say the word specifically here, but we are talking about the entire bookshelf. So when we're doing all, that would be the other kind of clue word that you're looking for there. Okay, we could draw a picture of this. So here's a bookshelf. Here's 4 shelves. Oops, I need one more shelf on there. Okay, so there's 4 shelves and there's 21 books on this shelf, 21 books on this shelf, 21 here, and 21 here. So we have got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 21 each. Okay, so 4 groups of 21. So let's write this out. Now you guys can start writing. Okay, make sure your numbers are lined up properly. Now, excuse me, I want you to pause the video and do your multiplying. Okay? Okay, if you did your multiplying correctly, 4 times 1 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So you give yourself a check mark if you got that right. All right. Soman bought a dozen packages of gum. Each package has 8 sticks of gum. How many sticks of gum does Soman have in all? All right, you do not need to write this down. Okay, but you do need to write down number 6, so write that down. All right, here's what I want you to look for. I want you to look for the 2 numbers that we have to use. So pause the video until you have the 2 numbers that this question tells you about. Okay, here's one number, 8. We know there's 8 sticks of gum in every package. Where I don't see another number though. So is there a word that means a number? Okay, can you see that word that means a number? There it is, dozen. So when your mom buys a dozen eggs, there are 12 eggs in the package. Okay, so dozen means 12. So those are our 2 numbers, 8 and 12. All right, so it says, how many sticks of gum does Soman have in all? Now, normally, if we saw in all, that would tell us to add. But when we see in all, and we also see this word right here, each is the clue to multiply. Okay, so if that word each was not there, then we would add. But the word each tells us that we have to multiply. So if you can, I would like you to write your multiplication sentence, your multiplication problem down here. Line up your numbers, figure out the answer as best as you can, and pause until you have that done. Okay, so you should have written out 8 on the bottom, 12 on top. Now, some of you know your 8 times tables, so you already know this answer. If you didn't know your 8 times tables, you would say 8 times 2 is 16. Write down the 6. Carry the 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And of course, the proper answer for that one, if you've memorized it, 12 times 8 is 96. So give yourself a check mark if you got that correct. Now, I would like you to rewrite this question and solve it. That's number 7. So pause until you have that done. And I would like you to do number 8, write out the question, or write out the, you remember you don't write this out, write number 8. We're going to read the question together and then I want you to solve it. Okay, here's the question. Gurman planted 3 magic beans. Each bean grew into a plant which had 81 gold coins. How many gold coins did Gurman have altogether? And this is a 2-part question. What did Gurman buy for his teacher with all his money? Okay, I hope you think of the right answer for that one.